Have y'all seen Nefarious yet? If not, go check it out first and come back to this. I really enjoyed this movie. It came out in 2023. It's based off a novel written by Steve Deese entitled The Nefarious Plot. And in this movie, there's an inmate who's on death row. His name is Edward Wayne Brady, played by Sean Patrick Flannery, who does a hell of a job, by the way. And he's to be cross-examined by a psychiatrist played by Jordan Belfi, who also does a great job, whose name is Dr. James Martin. And Dr. James Martin has to determine as to whether or not if Edward is insane on the day of his scheduled unaliving. Now, Edward is possessed. A lot of Christian overtones in this movie, right, as far as the way that demons are framed. Demons are seeking to destroy humans in order to hurt God, yada, yada, yada. But while watching the movie, certain thoughts come to mind. I noticed some shit which brought about certain questions, certain ideas. Now, the demon which possesses Edward identifies theirself as Nefariamo, or rather, Nefarious. And if you look up what Nefarious means, you'll see that it says flagrantly wicked, abominable, evil, criminal. Now, Edward mentions that oftentimes Nefarious possesses him and gets him into all types of shit and leaves him to deal with the consequences. Like, for example, he'll cause him to go fuck with a couple of people, right? And then those people will whoop his ass, and he'll leave Edward to experience the ass whooping. Or stir up a ruckus in the prison, right? Or cause a riot, for example, and Edward would be thrown into solitary confinement, right? And the demon would leave him to deal with, himself in solitary confinement. And so when I saw this, I immediately thought, holy shit, isn't this like the same thing that happened to Christ? Like at the beginning of his crucifixion, he's, when they're driving, well, not the beginning of the crucifixion, but into the crucifixion, when they begin to place him on the cross, they start to drive the nails into his hand. He's like, oh, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, because, the Spirit is with him. But then, the Spirit leaves him, right, by the time we get to the end of the crucifixion. And, some of his last words were, Father, why have you forsaken me? It's like, holy shit, the Spirit gets him into some fucking bullshit and fucking leaves him to deal with the repercussions. And speaking of crucifixion, we find out that Nefarious chooses the electric chair as the form of unaliving for Edward, rather than lethal injection. And when Dr. Martin asks him, why, he explains in detail, right? It's pretty fucking gruesome, right? What's going to happen, the process of it. And then he says, I can't think of a more fitting introduction into eternal damnation. And then he mentions that a more fitting introduction actually would be crucifixion, which we know Christ was crucified. And so it makes me wonder, is this a hint that Christ experienced eternal damnation? You notice how in this movie Christ is referred to as the carpenter, right? His area of profession. What make you of this? Nefarious also mentioned that Christ was given a deal, and he rejected it. And, Christ was baptized at the River Jordan, right, where the Spirit descended upon him, and then he went into the desert, right, to see Azazel, right, sent to Azazel. He was tempted, again, offered a deal. So that checks out. But tell me, what make you of all of this? What comes to mind? And do you want to hear more? Like, comment, and share. Let me know in the comment section. Yo, be easy.